Have you ever questioned the shape of our world or the very existence of volcanoes? In the vast expanse of our universe, we find ourselves on this beautiful blue and green sphere, spinning ceaselessly in the void. Or so we've been told. We've been taught to accept these truths without question. The Earth, a perfect sphere, spinning on its axis with a molten core responsible for the dramatic eruptions of volcanoes. But have we ever stopped to question this narrative? Have we ever wondered about the very shape of our realm and the existence of volcanoes? This belief system, this understanding of our world, has been ingrained in us since the 1700s. The spinning ball with a molten core has been painted as an indisputable fact, but is it really? The existence of volcanoes, these majestic and terrifying natural phenomena, is tied to this narrative. Their eruptions, we are told, are fueled by the Earth's molten core. But what if the truth is far different? What if the reality we've been sold is nothing more than a carefully constructed lie? We are led to believe that volcanoes are the result of tectonic movements, of the Earth's crust breaking and the fiery rage of the core being unleashed. But have we ever questioned this? Have we ever questioned the reality of what we're told? What if volcanoes, as we know them, are nothing more than the result of a simple concoction recipe, a mixture of metal filings, sulfur and water, placed a few feet deep in the ground? And in about 8 hours you have an eruption, as large or as small as you want, depending on the size of the payload. But what if we've been lied to? What if our understanding of volcanoes is fundamentally flawed? What if there's a different story to tell? A story that challenges the very foundations of our understanding of the world. A story that introduces a new concept, a new way of looking at things, a story that brings us closer to the truth. Enter meltology, a theory that challenges our traditional understanding of volcanoes. It's a riveting concept that dares to challenge the bedrock of geology and volcanism, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of the world we inhabit. Meltology is not just a theory, it's a paradigm shift, a perspective that breaks away from the conventional narrative of a molten core feeding volcanoes. Instead, it paints a different picture, one that might seem extraordinary at first glance, but not less plausible. It suggests that what we perceive as volcanoes today are not the fiery funnels of molten magma, as we've been taught, but rather the remnants of ancient cooling towers. Intriguing, isn't it? These cooling towers, according to meltology, are vestiges of a bygone era, relics that bore witness to a cataclysmic event of unimaginable scale. This event, often referred to as the X-Factor event in meltology, triggered a massive meltdown, transforming these towering structures into what we now recognize as volcanoes. Now, this might have you questioning, what about the eruptions, the lava? Meltology has an answer for that too. It proposes that the volcanic eruptions we observe are not the result of magma surges from a molten core, but rather they are the aftermath of a simple concoction recipe dating back to the 1700s. A blend of metal filings, sulfur and water, buried just a few feet deep in the ground, can mimic a volcanic eruption. The size of the eruption can be manipulated depending on the payload of the concoction. It's a fascinating proposition, isn't it? It shakes the very foundation of our understanding, prompting us to question, to explore, to seek the truth that lies beyond the veil of accepted knowledge. Meltology doesn't just challenge the concept of volcanoes, it challenges our perception of reality itself. So if volcanoes are not a result of a molten core, then what are we actually looking at? Since the 1700s, there's been a simple recipe to create what we call volcanoes today. A recipe, you ask? A concoction that can mimic the dramatic eruption of a volcano? Yes, indeed. And it's surprisingly straightforward. This recipe is a blend of seemingly innocuous ingredients: metal filings, sulfur, and water. When these elements are combined and placed a few feet deep in the ground, something astonishing happens. In approximately 8 hours, a violent eruption occurs, mimicking the spectacle of a natural volcano. The size of the eruption can be adjusted based on the size of the payload, the concoction that is buried underground. But why would anyone want to create artificial volcanoes? Here's where the plot thickens. This method could potentially be used to manipulate our perception of the world, to perpetuate a narrative that may not be entirely true. The narrative of a globe-shaped Earth with a molten core. Think about it. The existence of volcanoes is one of the key pieces of evidence cited to support the theory of a globe Earth, with a molten core feeding these fiery mountains. But what if that's not the case? What if these eruptions, these so-called volcanoes, are not natural phenomena at all, but rather the result of this centuries-old recipe? This raises a multitude of questions. If volcanoes can be artificially created, then how many of the eruptions we've witnessed are truly natural? How many are the result of this recipe designed to reinforce the narrative of a globe Earth? And if there's no molten core feeding these volcanoes, then what are we actually looking at? This leads us to an unavoidable question. If the globe Earth theory is supported by artificially created evidence, then what does that say about the theory itself? Could it be that the truth is being obscured, hidden behind a veil of deception? So, why would they lie? What are they hiding? These questions linger, begging for answers. As we delve deeper into this mystery, we may just uncover the truth. But remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction. If there is no molten core feeding these so-called volcanoes, then how do volcanoes make sense on a flat plane? This question may seem baffling at first, but when we dive into the realm of meltology, things start to take an interesting turn. Meltology suggests that what we call volcanoes today are possibly old giant cooling towers that have melted down during the last X-Factor event. Imagine the colossal structures that once towered, now reduced to what we perceive as mountains, with their peaks occasionally spewing out remnants of their past fiery glory. But how is this even possible, you may ask? Well, it all boils down to a simple recipe that's been around since the 1700s. This concoction of metal filings, sulfur and water, when buried a few feet deep into the ground, can trigger an eruption within 8 hours. The magnitude of the eruption depends on the size of the payload. Yes, it's that simple. In this way, volcanoes on a flat plane start to make sense, don't they? They're not the result of a molten core churning beneath our feet, but the aftermath of a long-gone era of towering structures and cataclysmic events. This perspective not only reshapes our understanding of volcanoes, but also ties into the larger narrative of a flat Earth. If the Earth is indeed flat, then the idea of a molten core becomes redundant. Instead, the concept of meltology perfectly fits into this narrative, providing a plausible explanation for the phenomena we observe. So, we're left to ponder. Are volcanoes just remnants of a bygone era, and are we living on a flat plane? While these ideas may seem radical, they offer an alternative perspective that challenges our traditional understanding of the world around us. Meltology not only challenges the traditional understanding of volcanoes, but also provides a new lens to view our world. Today we've delved into the lies we've been told and the alternative theory of meltology. We've taken a journey through the twisting corridors of deception, where the very ground beneath our feet has been misrepresented. We've questioned the status quo, the so-called scientific facts that have been spoon-fed to us since childhood. The globe model, the molten core, the spinning ball Earth, all these have been called into question. We've exposed the false narrative of geology and volcanism, which have been tightly interwoven into this fabricated reality. We've looked at what volcanoes really are, if not the fiery outlets of a supposed molten core. Since the 1700s, we've been given a simple recipe to create these so-called volcanoes, a concoction of metal filings, sulfur and water placed a few feet into the ground. An eruption as large as we want can be created in just 8 hours. A narrative conveniently designed to perpetuate the lie of a globe Earth. But what if there's another explanation? Enter meltology, the study and exploration of melted structures. This theory suggests that what we call volcanoes today might actually be remnants of ancient cooling towers, melted down during a cataclysmic event. A narrative that makes more sense on a flat plane, challenging the mainstream understanding of our realm. The truth, as they say, is often stranger than fiction. The surface of our world is not what we've been led to believe. The volcanoes, the spinning globe, the molten core, they're all part of a grand deception. But as we peel back the layers of this lie, we find a different story waiting to be told. Meltology offers us a new lens to view our world, a new perspective that defies the conventional wisdom. And as we peel back the layers of deception, we must keep questioning, keep exploring, and always keep seeking the truth.